All right, are we live? All right, it is June 13th, 6 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Mr. Soriano, please proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Present.
Commissioner Rizzio,
Present.
Vice Chair Cross,
Present.
and Commissioner Lozano and Chairman Mitchell are both absent.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, so prior to approval of the agenda, there's one thing I would like to discuss. So I know we've discussed panhandling at intersections and found it to be concerning.
I'm sorry, Mr.
prior.
Chair, that item is not on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, thank you. But recent further developments have been brought to my attention. No, I'm aware, just please let me finish.
Mr. Chair, the appropriate time to bring up these comments would be under Commissioner's reports.
It is, okay, please let me finish what I'm saying. Okay, it has been brought to my attention, further developments that I believe would justify adding an urgency item to the agenda. So we have the power to do so upon a 2/3 vote typically, but given absences that would require a unanimous vote. I'm happy to state the relevant government code sections, if you would like.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so the two findings that the Commission would have to make to add an urgency item on the agenda is that it came to the attention of the City or of the Commission after the posting of the agenda. The second finding is that action needs to be taken before the next regular meeting of the Commission. I don't believe that the Commission has those findings.
So my justifications for said findings would be the following. So there's been a recent increase in public safety threats, including recent incidents of aggressive panhandling at ATMs and drive-thrus, making recipients a captive audience. Number two, there's been increasing traffic disruption and related threats. We've seen a spike in complaints and outcry from residents and businesses, including likely during this meeting. There's increasing and continued economic impact on businesses. And then fifth, there's upcoming extreme weather conditions, raising concern for the health and safety of panhandlers. And then sixth, there's been reports of vans picking up and transporting panhandlers, prompting concerns over possible exploitation. And then seventh, current lack of enforcement mechanisms and responses, or there's a current lack of enforcement mechanisms and responses to effectively address these issues. And then eighth, an impending recess of multiple city bodies would make timely action at a later date unlikely, so it wouldn't be until September, so after the summer. And then the purpose of said emergency item would be to discuss and evaluate the extent of these concerns and whether they necessitate a special meeting. So now I'm going to pass it to motion. Would anyone like to motion?
What are we approving?
So we would be adding an emergency item to the agenda upon finding that we all agree that it is an emergency or would necessitate an emergency response.
Members of the Commission, I would strongly caution the Commission on, on this. This would be a potential Brown Act violation.
This is allowed under the Brown Act. I would be happy to cite the Brown Act. So California Code, section 54954-2, notwithstanding subdivision A, the legislative body may take action on items of business not appearing on the posted agenda under any of the conditions stated below. Prior to discussing any item pursuant to this subdivision, the legislative body shall publicly identify the item. One, upon a determination by a majority vote of the legislative body that an emergency situation exists, as defined in section 54956.5. And then that section states an emergency situation would constitute an emergency which shall be defined as a work stoppage, crippling activity, or other activity that severely impairs public health, safety, or both, as determined by a majority of the members of the legislative body. Now, given absences, it wouldn't require a supermajority, but a unanimous vote.
I move that we table this issue until our next regular meeting.
Okay. In response, I would like to call a special meeting.
Mr. Chair, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Oh, yes, forgive me. Is there a second to the motion?
Well, I would just like to know what hard data that you have on this right now.
So
this
I've
instance.
received recent reports that were brought to my attention that the situation is worsening. And if it's not acted on now, it will not be acted on for months.
But what data do we have to show that it's worsening besides what we're hearing and hearsay and so on and so forth?
Well, that would be data if we're receiving increased complaints.
Is there any, do we have anything in the agenda as far as the police department reports? Have they been
That
called
I'm
out
aware of,
or-
no.
Okay.
But I've received complaints of panhandling outside of ATMs recently, which is incredibly concerning to me. I think that would pose a safety issue. Also in drive-throughs. And then prior commission foundings have found that would make them a captive audience. There's increasing disruptions, and then increasing and continued economic impact on businesses. And I've received reports of vans picking up and transporting these panhandlers around. So I know we've kind of talked about mainly issues related to traffic prior, and I feel that these developments would necessitate an urgency item.
Well, I don't want to second it without hard data.
Mhm.
You know, I want to be able to see, you know, the calls that have been made, that have been, you know, if there's been any fines issued or any abatement made by the police department to
Mhm.
get them to stop doing what they're doing.
Okay,
So I think there's all those mechanisms in place that need to be addressed.
okay, yeah, I
And
understand
I
that.
understand that panhandling is very annoying around here and has been going on for a long time.
Okay, I agree completely, and so I think
So
it
that
would be
way we have a good
appropriate.
presentation and a good, strong agenda to do something about it.
Yeah, so I have plans in place, and I understand why adding an emergency item could be controversial. So what we could do instead is call a special meeting, and I would have authority to do that. So I would like to schedule a special meeting for next Thursday, so June 20th at 6 p.m. And then we can discuss this later, and then that would provide more time for public comment. Okay, and then clerk, please note that a special meeting has been scheduled for June 20th at 6 p.m. Concerning this topic. So,
Do you have consent of the chair?
I'm the acting chair.
Okay. We'll discuss this offline. Thank you.
Okay, so the topics of the special meeting shall be general discussion related to panhandling, the related municipal codes, enforcement, and then potential signage.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Again, this item is not on the agenda, and there cannot be
I
lengthy discussion.
understand it's not on the agenda. I have authority to call a special meeting, and I have done so. Yes, I do. I'm the acting chairperson and have authority to call a special meeting.
Okay, and you do not give me direction.
City staff works at the direction of commissions and council members. Okay, I would now like to move to public comment for any items that
Mr. Chair,
aren't-
the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Yes, thank you for the correction. All right, I would like to...
I move that we approve the agenda for June 13th, 2024.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second it. Just do your homework.
Okay, the
Motion
motion...
passed.
uh,
I'm sorry, I'm the clerk. Motion passes with Commissioner Rizzio abstained.
Would you like to make a correction to the record?
No, I think I hit the wrong button.
Okay, would you rather have voted differently? Okay.
I will
so-
correct that on my end.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then I would now like to move to public comment for any issues or items, or any issues or topics that aren't on the agenda for today. Okay, so we have Brenda Alcaraz discussing the subject of homelessness and panhandling. Yes, under the Brown Act, the Public Safety Commission should not take action on or discuss matters raised during public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers may not yield their time to others without consent of the chair. All comments are to be directed to the Public Safety Commission and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during public comments. Please complete and submit a speaker card to the city clerk. Okay, I imagine many of you have already done that, and if not, you can do so at this time.
Can I start now?
Yes, give me one moment. At this time, pursuant to the Brown Act, any person may comment on matters of general interest. You first.
My name is Brenda Alcaraz. I am a city carrier here in Desert Hot Springs. I am in charge of delivering mail to the Vons Shopping Center. I have not done so for quite about a year now because there are so many panhandlers and homelessness there. I do not feel safe. As a small female, I have been physically attacked. I had to run to the Vons store to pretty much get away from the person. Now it's to the point where I leave that shopping center every day for a mail carrier or whoever feels that it is safe for them to carry that small area. I don't feel safe. I live in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I work in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I am very proud to say that I am a resident of Desert Hot Springs. But I do see that there are a lot of issues with homelessness and panhandlers.
Thank you very much. Are you finished?
Yes,
Okay, you may sit down.
thank you.
All right, and then now we have Stephanie Martin discussing public utility easement and code rules.
Good evening, Safety Commission and the clerk and the city deputy manager. Hello, everybody. This evening, I would like to address an issue that I brought up actually last Tuesday, and Travis Clark did respond about something about how I went up to the counter. And yes, but for the public record, I would like everybody to be on the same page, and as far as the rules go and the code goes. So I noticed that there's nothing online as far as the city, like the code or the policies that have to do with the public utility easement. Okay, so like, I guess in the 50s, I think, the MSWD got the right-of-way for the easement in the last 5-foot portion of each of the properties around the, I guess they were called cabin lots at first. Okay, so what happens is that it creates like kind of an alleyway between houses, okay? And then, but because there's no like uniform rules online or anywhere else, people are kind of doing their own thing. Some people get, approved to do their own thing, and others are not approved to do their own thing. And it just seems, okay, where can we go online and agree with this, So anyways, so for example, I had an unfortunate issue with actually one of the police officers. We had a disagreement about this. Whose responsibility is the public utility easement? Is it my property? Is it not? It shouldn't be this way. That disagreement should be somewhere online where a resource, a primary document of sorts, preferably so we could go online and we don't have to sit there and debate and argue these matters. So anyways, I didn't also like how I was necessarily treated by the code over this ongoing issue I have with my neighbor. We have a disagreement, but nobody has a survey, so we can't, anyway, so that's out the window, I guess, for now. But anyways, yeah, I didn't get my due process. I got slapped with all these dang fines and then crossed out and then thrown out. And it was really an unnecessary hassle and stress for me personally. And again, if we could just have like a sanctified, not a sanctified, but like a streamlined way of doing business here all across the board, then I think a lot of the emotional upset and frustration that commonly occurs in this little small town can maybe be avoided and mitigated a little bit easier. Thank you so much for my time and your time as well. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Okay, just one clarifying question to ensure that I understand you correctly. So you're concerned about the usage of easements or alleyways that Mission Springs Water District has the right of way on. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Thank you.
Can I see the documents? Can you hand them to Gerald? The documents that you have, so I can review them?
Mr. Chair, so under public comment, there really isn't any back and forth dialogue that is appropriate. Again, that's under the Brown Act. If the speaker has documents that she would like to present to the commission, I'd be happy to take them. But again, back and forth dialogue is discouraged.
Okay, I understand. And then also we are allowed to ask minor clarifying questions related to that. So I just want to make that clear as well. All right, are there any other public comments at this time related
Yes.
to items not on the agenda?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lori Ramey. I'm a proud resident of Desert Hot Springs. I lived here 31 years. I own a home at Mission Lakes. I work here, I live here, and today I went to go to the Bank of America. I always have problems with the Bank of America. Trash outside and vomit outside the ATMs, or the ATMs don't work. But today I went to drive into the drive-thru and there was glass and trash. I have a picture if anyone wants to see it. An enormous amount of stuff blocking the drive-thru. And it was all in the whole area there. And I called Russell, messaged him, and it was taken care of. But it's ongoing at that bank area. And the light in the parking lot at Stater Brothers doesn't ever work for a year now. And with my eyes are 70 years old, and it's kind of hard to see when you pull up and there's no lights at all. And you're like this, trying to see, and it's just, I don't know who to go to for that stuff. But the trash at the bank today was absolutely outrageous. It was all over. He said it was all needles and all kinds of stuff. It's just a homeless issue. They live at the bank. I know they got to live somewhere. It's an issue, but that trash today was a little bit much, but it was taken care of. But I just wanted to say that it goes on. And those people, the funeral people, panhandling money in the middle of the street, they are a safety hazard. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And just for future reference, you can always file a complaint or a call for service with code compliance here. And I'm sure they'd be happy to help you with a lot of that.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, are there any more public comments at this time? All right, we are now going to move on to the Code Compliance Monthly Report. Tyler Messer, please go ahead.
Good evening. So for May 2024, Code Compliance received a total of 193 service requests. We did a total of 510 inspections. We issued 130 notices of violations. We issued 62 citations totaling $105,500. We removed 20 shopping carts from the public right-of-way. AVA Officer Chafin closed 9 cases pertaining to flat tires, all of which the property owners complied with the corrective actions. Abandoned AVA officer Pam Chafin obtained an abatement warrant to tow away an abandoned vehicle from a single-family residential property located on 7th Street. The vehicle is causing a public nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood. Officer Human gained compliance from a property located on 6th Street, which had overgrown reeds, no ground cover, an illegal structure, no business license for the rental property. Officer Human and Supervisor Messer performed an annual inspection of the Evergreen Massage Parlor and found several outstanding violations that resulted in the case being presented to the city manager for immediate revocation, and the massage establishment's permit was revoked. Supervisor Messer closed the case at a cannabis facility located at 65311 San Jacinto Lane. The business Vetsleaf surrendered their conditional use permit and their regulatory permits. Officer Brock held an administrative hearing for an administrative citation that was issued for a noise disturbance at a short-term vacation rental. The hearing officer upheld the citation and ruled in the city's favor. Officer Valdez obtained compliance from Europa Inn and Suites on Palm Drive. The business had a damaged sign. Officer Valdez reached out to them and asked them to repair it. The sign was promptly fixed. Code compliance is currently in the process of our cost recovery for fiscal years 2023 and 2024. Nuisance abatement preliminary list was sent to Webb and Associates showing 198 properties on the list for a total assessment of $2,633,032.91, including penalties. Officer Valdez obtained compliance from a property owner of a single-family residential property on Deodore. The property was found to be in violation due to excessive junk and trash visible from the public right-of-way, and I've attached some photos to the back of the report for you guys, and that'll conclude my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for your report. Webb and Associates, they are the company responsible for recovery?
No, it's a company that we contract out with to assist in our cost recovery.
But they're not responsible for actually going after the...
No.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. And in past years, what's the percentage of the city actually making a recovery from what's owed?
We recover a large portion of this, and what we don't recover, we do we assess to the property's taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any comments? Or any questions or concerns regarding the report?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now move on to the Animal Control Monthly Report. I pass this on to Stephanie Zamora. Oh,
Good evening, Commission. Yeah, I'll take it for Stephanie. They had a
Okay.
scheduling conflict this evening, so she's not able to be here. I know her stats were put onto your agenda. I'll just make a couple notes on their stats for the month of May. They had the largest increase in both license, animal citations, and calls for service, with 270 calls for service. And the only other thing that Stephanie asked me to pass on was that no adoption events this summer because of the heat now. In November 2nd is the next adoption event at the Hacienda location, and Stephanie's putting that together right now, and she's looking at a larger than usual adoption event that's going on, one because we'll be going through the summer not having any events, and to kind of make it a community event, looking for food trucks and stuff like that to come there. So more information on that to come in the near future and before that happens.
okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I'm not sure if you would know this, but I've been seeing an awful lot of stray dogs, and even on some of the Facebook sites, people mentioned seeing people just drop dogs off on the street. Do we have something like up in Oakland? They have at their animal control. They have boxes where you can drop your animals off at night, and in the morning, the officers will get them instead of having people just drop their animals off on the street.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one, we don't have boxes like that, and we discourage that. So a couple things. One, and especially since kind of the ease of restrictions with the pandemic. Our shelter, as every shelter is in the county and really across the nation, is over at capacity. We cannot take any more animals. And so what's happening is individuals that, a large portion, I should say, of individuals that had pets or got a pet during the pandemic, and now they're either back at work or other, life continues on, they're finding that they don't have the time to take care of these animals. They're either dropping them off at animal shelters or they're just releasing them. So for us, no, we don't have a 24-hour box that people can drop them off. If someone has to drop off an animal and it's after hours for animal control, they can call the police department. An officer will evaluate that call. What we're asking folks to do is to hang on to the animal until animal control is open the next day, and then have that conversation with animal control to see if there's another solution other than leaving an animal with animal control. If it's an emergency and there's no other option, then officers can, in some instances, take those animals, and then we will house them. We have a spot at the police department, and they have access to a kennel here at animal control until animal control comes in the morning. But it's a last case resort. Folks need to be responsible for their animals, and just releasing an animal is abandonment. It's a crime, and you can be charged with that. And we will go after folks if that happens, that folks do that. So we want folks to be responsible because it is such a bad situation, quite frankly, right now for all shelters in being able to adequately house these animals and give them the life that they deserve. Unfortunately, we're fortunate that Stephanie and our folks at Animal Control do a phenomenal job in adopting out dogs and getting them to other shelters and stuff. But again, it is a challenge, so we ask folks not to do that. If they can hold on to the animal overnight and then contact Animal Control when they are there in the morning. But again, last case, if it's an emergency, call the police department and then we'll evaluate it.
Okay, thank you. And then just a brief item of privilege. I just got a text saying that the audience video isn't showing. It's just the timer. So could we please restore that?
It's live. There's a slight delay.
Okay. Okay, so you can assure that the audience is being displayed?
Yes, I see it right in front of me.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any public comments at this time related to the Animal Control Monthly Report? All right, I will now move on to the Fire Department Monthly Report. I pass on to Brian White.
Good evening, Commissioners. The monthly report for month of May for the fire activity, there were a total of 484 incidents within the Desert Hot Springs jurisdiction. Just a quick recap, there were 27 false alarms, 392 medical emergencies, 20 public service assists, and then 20 traffic collisions, as well as 9 wildland fires, which I'll cover a little bit more when we get into the significant activity portion. Your average response time was 4.98 minutes, so just under 5. Your percentage of calls that were 5 minutes or less were 65.42. You did have 105 responses that were greater than 5 minutes and 14 that were greater than 10 minutes. When we look at the deployment of the resources, Desert Hot Springs Fire Engine, which is Engine 37, responded to 353 of those emergencies. They responded out of the jurisdiction 90 times. When we look at the aid received, I'll talk about the numbers a little higher than usual, and that's due to the wildland fires that we had within the jurisdiction. But you had a total of 294 outside resources respond into the jurisdiction for a total of 339 outside resources coming in. Our significant incidents, so on May 6th, CAL FIRE Riverside County Fire Department resources were dispatched to a reported structure fire in the area of Dillon and Palm. That resulted in a large fire that was threatening an encampment. The first arriving fire department officer reported an unhoused encampment with multiple trailers on fire. Unfortunately, during the overhaul process, a victim was found deceased within the burned debris of the motorhome. The next incident was on May 18th, which was one of the wildland fires that I was talking about. Highway 62, just eastbound. The first arriving company officer reported 2 acres of grass. The final acreage on that fire was 27 acres. On May 19th, We had an additional wildland fire, which was reported as an illegal burn along Two Bunch Palms, near the Two Bunch Palms Resort. Additional 911 reports came in and we augmented the response. First arriving company officer reported a half acre of heavy vegetation and fuels burning with potential growth due to the winds that particular day. Again, there were multiple unhoused encampments within the area and threatened. That fire resulted in 2 acres burning within the local jurisdiction. And then your final fire was on May 28th. That was another fire along Highway 62, just literally at the city boundary, and then what we call the SRA, which is the state responsibility area. First arriving company officer reported 5 to 10 acres of grass burning towards the east with a potential for 60 acres. The final acreage for that fire resulted in 34 acres burned. Just a quick note on the increase in wildland fire responses along Highway 62. I think just based on the amount of rain that we've received the last 2 years, that's going to be the normal for all of the jurisdictions. We have some, not normal for us here in the desert communities. You're seeing some grass. As the temperatures start to increase, relative humidities decrease, that grass is going to die off. And we're right in that zone where it's in the flammable range. As summer continues, usually what we see is that grass will, because it's a fine dead fuel, it'll continue to cure and dry, and then at some point the wind blows it away. So as we get further into the summer months, specifically within Desert Hot Springs, the majority of that fine grass should no longer be an issue. But due to those 2 responses there, with augmented resources, that is the number that you're seeing for the additional mutual aid that you received for the month of May. And with that concludes the report for the fire department, and I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Okay, so I'm particularly curious about like medical incidents. So I know we have a large retirement population. Just generally, how many of those incidents would be related to strokes?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but if there's a specific request and a time frame, I am able to drill down through our Research and Statistics Bureau and further refine that, and I would have to come back and report that at a future meeting.
Okay, I understand. Just personal opinion wise, would you say that we get a lot of those calls or no?
For strokes?
Yes.
It'd be pure speculation. I would prefer to dive into the data so that I'm giving you an accurate breakdown of it. It's difficult to say what we hear dispatched on the radio. We have what are called determinant codes, and a lot of times just because what we hear dispatched over the radio is not the final outcome of the incident. So what may get dispatched as a stroke that I hear on the radio, after the paramedics do an assessment, it could be things like hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, or a cardiac event, which is causing stroke-like symptoms. So I think that to be factual in my comments, I would need to pull the back end of our patient care reports so that I can accurately report that number, sir.
Okay, I understand, and we can kind of delve more into it at a later date. I was just curious because I've heard of cities having mobile stroke units, and I imagine we're probably too small to have something like that. But I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, so to the mobile stroke units, Desert Hot Springs is served as far as ambulance through American Medical Response. That is a regional private hire company that is contracted with the county. Right now, there are no mobile stroke units within the deployment in all of Riverside County. Desert Hospital, which is just there in Palm Springs, just a short distance away, is one of the stroke receiving centers. But again, I'm happy to get all that information, but while I'm at it, if there's anything else that the commission would like me to drill down into, I could do that in one shot and bring those statistics back if that's the will of the commission.
Yeah, so I would greatly appreciate statistics on strokes. Are there any other items that either Commissioner Mitchell or Rizio would like to have investigated?
Yeah, I have a question about the incident with the multiple trailers and vehicles on fire, where you guys had found a deceased victim
Yes, sir.
burned in the debris of a motorhome. Now, that's your jurisdiction as far as fire control, right? Now, whose jurisdiction is that as far as code enforcement?
Well, so it's within the community of Desert Hot Springs, so that would be code enforcement or code compliance's jurisdiction. The fire is obviously mine. The deceased would be law enforcement. And we sometimes jointly conduct those. We have our own arson investigators, which are also peace officers. A lot of times that is a joint investigation, but that's how the jurisdictional responsibilities break down, sir.
My question is what can be done to prevent something like this with these multiple trailers that are against code to begin with being out there?
Well, I think that as we're hearing, the unsheltered problem in California is exactly that. It is a problem. It is something that we are trying to wrap our heads around and our arms around, both on the fire side and the law enforcement and our code compliance side. In California, however, it's not illegal to be unsheltered or unhoused. And so we're constantly trying to tiptoe this line in understanding that we have folks with no place to go. Is an RV a better option than living in the bushes? So it is a very complex scenario. The laws are not on our side in California with relation to that. I'm sure that the city attorney could speak more with some of those challenges that we have, let alone like the 602 letters and land ownership. So it's very difficult for both the law enforcement side and on the fire side with the unsheltered population. And it's not specific to just Desert Hot Springs. I work throughout the county, and every community, every city is grappling with this problem. As you're all aware, and you see the steps that your council and your city leadership are taking, they're trying to get in front of it, but it's an uphill battle and a very difficult one.
Well, I mean, people are dying in fires because they're encamping illegally. So I don't really see any concession to be made there, as far as I can see for public safety. I mean, has anything been done to circumvent the situation before there was a fire? Tell them to leave or?
If I may, really quickly. So for those that don't know me, good evening. I'm Dory Williams. I'm the Deputy City Manager, and obviously the unhoused population has been a major concern both tonight and in the community as a whole. Without starting a new agenda item, I know that's not what you all are doing. These questions are very valid. Might I suggest that we bring, maybe to your next meeting, a presentation so we can go over all of the efforts that the city's taken, how that works across all of the departments, because it does impact all of the departments, from police department, fire, code enforcement. And then we have a whole other team within the city manager's office that works alongside the hub activities, so that we can give just a comprehensive overview of those efforts and then the processes that go into, to your point, Commissioner Rizzio, the illegal camping and encampments that occur and how code tackles those and what steps are taken. So I'm happy to work with staff to bring that back maybe to your next meeting, where we can just give a comprehensive update, and then at that time we can address any questions, and obviously the community can come in and hear that and ask questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to take this time to invite a motion. I'm inviting either of you to make a motion. I would be happy to make one as well.
You're the chair, you can't make a motion.
Well, the chairman can make a motion. It's just preferred that the opportunity is given for.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so the item that's listed on the agenda and the recommendation is receive and file. The item is a monthly report. So I'm curious as to what motion that you would be making. If it's to invite staff to come back to give this presentation, that's something that can just be done.
Okay, yeah, then I invite a presentation to the next meeting.
I do have a question. With the increase in brush fires, we do have a lot of dry vegetation, and because we have a lot of wide open spaces around Desert Hot Springs, are there any brochures or announcements that can be made for the public in preparing themselves for some of these fires? Because yes, we don't live in an urban forest where there are a lot of trees, but we all know we have a lot of winds. And if there's a brush fire, if someone has a lot of junk in their yard or a lot of dry vegetation in their yard, the embers from the brush fire can blow, miles and start fires in other parts of of the city. So are there any brochures that we have access to that we can give citizens or let citizens, know where to find the information?
Yes, sir. So if you go to rbcfire.org, we have a lot of information on our website. There's a hazard reduction section that talks about, there's several ordinances which are specific to the county. The city has similar ordinances, but that's where we talk a lot about defensible space, how to make sure that your home is ready to withstand a wildland fire, and specific to your point about the embers, we call it hardening of the home using specific building materials. A lot of information on the website there that's available. Handouts, I'm trying to think, I don't have anything handout-wise. I'm thinking on the CAL FIRE side, so apologies, I'm thinking out loud, but that website will also link you to the CAL FIRE site as well, where there's additional information on, there's a public resource code that we use on the state site as well. And while that information may not be pertinent to the ordinances within Desert Hot Springs, how you harden your home, where we're looking for clear defensible space, there is the EMD, the Rivco Now, and the Ready Set Go. You can sign up for evacuation warnings and all that type of information. A lot of good stuff on there for the homeowners on the website.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners or staff? All right, I would now, or is there any public comment concerning the Fire Department monthly report at this time? All right, let's now move on to the Police Department monthly report. Deputy Police Chief Stephen Schott.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. For the crime stats for the month of May, you should have those in front of you. No significant increases, which is good to report out on. We did have a couple of significant decreases. Aggravated assaults went down 33% from this same time last year, and simple assaults down 18% from this time last year. And then motor vehicle thefts down 76% from this same time last year. So it's good to see the decreases and not increases, so I'm happy to report out on that. In terms of the activity by our officers, we took 3,076 calls for service during the month of May. Officers made 93 arrests and issued a total of 222 citations. So they're keeping very active out there, especially as we go into the summer months. I do want to thank, a couple of weeks ago, we gave our community presentation on the AB 481, the Military Equipment Use Ordinance. So I appreciate those commissioners and the public that came out to get that information. If you missed that presentation, then that information is on the city website, under the police department, and you can still access that information. So you understand what that ordinance is and how the department, what equipment we use and how we use it. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is this Saturday at the police department at 5 p.m. we're hosting an open house. I know some members of the Public Safety Commission will be there at a table to pass on some information that you folks have. But from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. it is open and free to the public. There'll be food and an opportunity to see some of the equipment and some of the vehicles, tour the police department. The improvements just finished inside the current police department building. The last improvements were done, so the last time we hosted an open house, it was our grand opening of our dispatch center, but now we have some new areas in the police department that have been refurbished and kind of reutilized, so we're happy to share that with the public. Again, some free food. We'll have hot dogs and hamburgers and drinks and some stuff for the kids, so please come out if you can, again, between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. this Saturday. And that completes my report.
All right, thank you very much. I just have one question because I've heard a lot about it recently. What would be the current policy surrounding Section 602 and 602 forms?
In regards to businesses, private properties?
More specifically businesses in
Sure.
trespassing.
Well, trespassing, it's a misdemeanor crime. For businesses, we ask businesses to have a 602 or no trespassing letter on file with the police department. So that, for instance, if we talk about like the Vaughn's parking lot or the Stater Brothers, those parking lot areas there, we like to keep those businesses, and each of those different businesses within that area there has to file every 6 months, a no trespass letter with the police department, and it gives us the authority that if there is someone that the shop owner, the property owner, or the on-site security guard has trouble with, someone that refuses to leave after they've been told to leave, it gives us the authority to go on there and make an arrest for 602, for no trespassing. The next part of that is what we do with them. It is a misdemeanor. Not all misdemeanors can go to jail, so it may be something that's a cite and release. It may be something that we're able to take someone to jail for, but it's just going to depend on the circumstances. It's going to depend on the number of times that person has been contacted by the police, if they've been arrested before for it. And then the same thing holds for private residences. So if folks have a vacation home or something like that, and maybe they're not in it, for a few months out of the year, they can again file a 602 letter with the police department, and that way, if there's an issue at that location, then we can go there, and that letter is on file. But again, they have to resubmit them to the police department every 6 months. You can drop it by the police department. You can go online. You can get the form and submit those with the police department.
Okay, thank you. And then one thing I've heard, and I'm not saying it's a fact, I was just wondering if you'd be able to confirm or deny it. I've heard from businesses that they've either been warned or cited for calling too often under Section 602. Is that something that's happened?
I'm not familiar of any businesses that have been, and I don't know of any private residents that we've cited anybody for calling. You can, if you abuse the 911 system, you can be cited for something like that. But off the top, I don't know of any specific business or private residents that we have taken any type of enforcement action on for that.
If I may, I can actually address that because this actually is something that has happened quite recently. So to kind of piggyback on the conversation regarding the 602, specifically as it ties to businesses. So businesses do have a responsibility to provide security for their businesses. They are for-profit organizations, and as such need to take measures to make sure that their business is secure. And so obviously law enforcement is there and they will step in and assist, but ultimately the first line of defense is security. So unfortunately, we do have several shopping centers where there have been excessive calls for service because of multitude of reasons, whether it be lack of security or security's there, but not necessarily handling some of the issues that are arising on that site. And so it does result in excessive calls for service to the police department. So with our code enforcement department, there have recently been some citations that have been issued to some of these shopping centers where this has been an ongoing issue, where we've met with them and tried to work through it. And so again, we're trying to seek compliance. We're never trying to, find somebody into oblivion. We are trying to seek compliance and make sure that we're balancing the needs of the overall community, who we are hearing from quite a bit with respect to some of the issues they're dealing with when they're trying to go shopping and having to confront some of these issues while they're there.
Okay, and then just to clarify, compliance would mean first having security trying to address the issue, and then security doesn't have enforcement powers, so then afterwards it would be appropriate to call the police?
That's exactly right. So security should be that first line of defense to try to get folks to move along, not loiter in front of storefronts. If that is not effective, then absolutely, that would be the opportunity to call the police department and we would step in, they would step in. We're seeing situations where those initial actions aren't being taken. PD is just being relied upon in some instances as that first line of defense, which if they're tied up constantly at these shopping centers, their response times to the residents are obviously going to be a lot longer, and that presents an issue.
Okay, thank you. So it would be the business's responsibility to have security in order to have people trespassed, or?
I wouldn't say it has to necessarily be security, right? But it is their responsibility to secure their property in whatever way they deem is appropriate.
Okay.
So that would be the first line of defense.
Okay, so like management or store staff telling them to leave would also apply?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I don't have any questions. Are there any questions from other commissioners?
I just have a statement. And Commissioner Lozano raised this issue a couple of months ago because actually it happened close to where she lives. and I'm seeing at least more and more of the evidence around the city, and that is not necessarily sideshows, but people spinning donuts. You see it at more and more intersections now. Have we gotten increased calls on this issue?
It's actually, it's interesting, I just came back from a conference, a two-day conference up in the Bay Area, and that was one of the topics. The street racing and sideshows was one of the topics. We're seeing a big increase in that. Different communities throughout the state of California. We're not seeing a huge increase out here in Desert Hot Springs, but it is one of those things that kind of catches on, and at some point, I would imagine that, hopefully we won't, but you can see it. So it's kind of a new phenomenon that law enforcement is dealing with these street takeovers and these intersections where car clubs or groups, they come in, they take over an intersection, they block off an intersection, and then do donuts and that type of stuff. So we have not seen it here in Desert Hot Springs. In Riverside County, it has occurred, but it is something that is on radar, and different departments have put together plans to address those type of incidents. And we will do the same here. If we see it increasing here, we will certainly take immediate enforcement action upon that.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to raise the issue because I am seeing, and not necessarily sideshows, but more evidence of the donuts throughout the city where people are doing donuts at various intersections, or even on the streets that are wide enough where they can spin their cars. And I just believe the next step is going to be the actual sideshows.
Yeah, and if folks see that, please give us a call. It's one of those things that, we got to get there and see it and try and catch somebody in the act, but still give us a call, make us aware of it if we're not already aware of it, and that way we can at least start getting folks out there and trying to stop those people as it's going on.
Are there any public comments related to the Police Department monthly report at this time? All right, thank you. And so, but before moving on to the commissioner reports, it recently came to my attention that we couldn't expect, unless we called for one, to be presented a budget draft until spring of 2025. And our primary role, of course, is to oversee the police budget. So if there isn't any objections, I would like to request a budget presentation related to salary schedules and overtime within the police department. Not because there's any issues I'm aware of, just I feel like it's the easiest opportunity to find efficiencies. Are there any objections or agreements?
I don't have any objections. However, this would not be done until our next regular meeting.
Yes.
I mean, and the budget was presented to us, correct, a couple of meetings ago?
It was
presented to us.
Correct.
It was presented to us a couple of meetings ago. The budget was.
Yes. I'm just trying to kind of hone in on certain items of the budget. And if there's any related concerns or other items that you feel appropriate, we could talk about that.
My
too.
question is, are there specific items that you want to look at, or are you going on a fishing expedition? Those are two different things.
So I've heard concerns over time. I'm not sure if that's something that's valid or not. And I feel the commission, it's its role to regularly review these things.
I agree, but again, my question is, are we going on a fishing expedition, or are there actual valid concerns that you can, really point to?
So my answer would be that previously I don't think we've received a thorough enough presentation to really have an idea about these things. So I feel like a presentation would be necessary or warranted.
Well, I do have some questions about the budget too, so I think it'd be a good thing.
Okay.
There's a few things on there that caught my eyes that I didn't say anything about.
Okay. Is there anything specifically you would like to be presented on?
We can go over it and then
Okay.
come to our conclusions.
Okay. So now I would now like to invite at the next meeting, so the September meeting, to receive a budget presentation related to current salary schedules and overtime, as well as recent or projected future changes. All right, I would now like to move on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Mitchell.
I have no report.
All right, Commissioner Rizzio.
I just have a few things that I met with Gary Gardner and Jan Pine. We discussed our SOPs, and the SOP was on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And did that get taken off the agenda to go up the chain?
Yes, because what we discussed is that I was going to be preparing something and bringing
Okay.
something back later this
So we
year.
sent it up the chain for presentation, and Gerald is going to amend it and write it, and then send it back down to us and let us look at it.
Okay.
And go from there. And the SOP is a standard operating procedure for the commission. And then we talked about the open house on Saturday at 5 p.m. on the 15th, that we're going to have 2 commissioners there, and you and I are going to attend.
Mhm.
And we're going to hand out brochures to the public just to give them an idea of what we do and why the Safety Commission is here, and we can answer questions, pertaining to why we're here, what we do, that kind of thing. And we can invite them to come to the meetings, because it would be more effective with a full house and questions, and that way we can get more insight about what's going on in the community as far as public safety is concerned.
Yeah, I'm excited to be there, and I believe now we have the most members in the audience of any meeting I've sat on. So hopefully we can improve from here. Do you have anything else to say?
And I want to say that I attended on 5/28, I attended the PD's military weapons brief, showing that they had a great job. It was really, really interesting to see all the technology that you have. I'm glad you guys have that available. And that's all I have.
All right, so now, given that I'm on the subcommittee related to illegal dumping, and I feel like the recess will provide a lot of ample time to prepare and talk to city staff and maybe come up with some solutions and ideas. I already have some, but I feel like it would be appropriate to get this on the next agenda. And I would like to invite a motion to get illegal dumping on the next agenda.
Mr. Chair, staff has noted that it will be on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, it is 6:57 p.m. Unless there's any other comments or questions, I would like to adjourn the meeting. All right, it's 6:57. The meeting is adjourned.